Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another story from the Healing in Nature story series. And today I have Laura Alessio, and she's here with me, and she's also a fellow nurse and a board certified nurse coach. After 15 years in being in the nursing world, she really felt this deeper pull that led her to move away from California to Puerto Rico about a year ago. Laura says that she feels like she's been a mermaid all her life, which is super cool, and she's deeply connected to the ocean and all of its healing powers. So, Laura, thank you for being here today and sharing your journey with us. Hi, Laura.
Yes. Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. So let's just start by just say a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your story, wherever part you want to begin. Maybe in a place where there was some shift happening.
Sure. Thank you. So, yeah, I was born and raised in San Diego, and it's funny how you mentioned the part about being a mermaid my whole life, because my mom actually jokes that I surfed out of her body, which obviously not literally. Um, but I have had a strong pull towards the ocean ever since I was little. I was very fortunate to grow up in San Diego, close to the coast. So growing up near the ocean and learning how to swim and body surf and bodyboard has really just been a huge part of my life as like an extracurricular, like hobby and fun activity, and also as, a way to release stress and, healing property. I was very lucky. I went to a high school that offered surf PE. And so I participated in surf PE 1 year in high school. And, just growing up and having that be such a huge part of my life, I honestly feel like if I'm away from any big body of water for a long period of time, I actually like have this like claustrophobic feeling. It's very interesting. So
Wow.
being close to water, I know for some people, it's scary, but for me, it's like I almost feel more safe near water. And so, yeah, as far as my journey as a registered nurse, I learned about nurse coaching. It was actually around 2 years ago. This time I was at a med legal conference because I was working as a legal nurse consultant, and there was a vendor who was doing video interviews of the attendees, and I was talking to him, and he was telling me that his wife is a nurse and she teaches nurses how to be nurse coaches. And I immediately, my interest was piqued and I immediately wanted to know everything all about it. I, couldn't believe that I hadn't heard about it before. And the more that I learned, the more that I wanted to dig deeper and find out more. And luckily, his wife came with their son later that afternoon just to visit, and I was able to, meet her face to face and really learn more. And we exchanged contact information and kept in touch. And I went home and just went down all the rabbit holes, and I just couldn't let the thought go of, taking that next path in my nursing career. And I hopped on a call with her, and then that led to me hopping on a call for the Nurse Coach Collective. And I think it was about 6 months later, maybe it was the following year, so the beginning of 2024, I started the nurse coaching program. And the reasons that really was so interested is just because of my own personal journey, as far as, my health journey with, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2017. And during that journey, I felt like, once I learned about nurse coaching, I was like, where have they been? I could have used one during that journey. I had a functional medicine provider who was excellent that I still see, but having additional support of a nurse coach would have been made it a lot less stressful. And then also I did a yoga teacher training in 2019, and throughout that program and learning about mindfulness and meditation, and we also got a little bit of Ayurvedic learning in that, I really wanted to be able to take that and figure out a way to implement into my nursing career. But I didn't know how to start or what to do. I didn't know there was such a thing as a board certified holistic nurse at the time. And so, yeah, just 2 years ago, this whole new world opened up to me, and I'm super passionate about it and really feel like I can say that I truly love what I do.
That's so awesome. So you've been a nurse coach only for 2 years, or this is where you just started?
I learned about it about 2 years ago. I graduated from the Nurse Coach Collective last August.
Nice. Well, congrats for finding the path for a more holistic lifestyle for you and I bet all the other people that you are touching in your practice.
Yes, I'm so grateful that, the universe aligned me with this person. And it's funny because I look back and I was kind of on the fence about going to that med legal conference because I wasn't sure if it was something that would, be worthwhile. I think I was one of the only nurses, if not the only one that was there. And I'm so grateful. I mean, I can't imagine not having gone. I might still not even know about nurse coaching.
Wow. This is interesting. So you said that you were a med legal nurse. That sounds, I don't know, in my mind, it seems something very like in a box. And then compared to that, you were talking how much you like the water and the flow and everything. And I was like, oh, how interesting you were doing this role of kind of like strict and serious compared to like a lifestyle of being flowy. And I'm curious, how is it looking like for you now that you're on this new path? What have changed?
Yeah, so I still do some of the legal nurse consulting. So how I got into that was during COVID. With all the downtime, I had always had an interest in legal nurse consulting just because my dad was a personal injury attorney and I never wanted to be an attorney, but I always enjoyed hearing his stories and learning about his cases. And I think I first heard about legal nurse consulting during nursing school, but it wasn't really like talked about in any of our classes. I think I just saw a book on it. And so during COVID, I thought, with all the extra downtime, stay at home orders, I could take the course and just to learn as a lifelong learner. And I ended up completing it. And then I was talking with some colleagues like a few months after, and one of them said that she could send me a referral and asked how she would pay me. And I said, I don't know. I hadn't even thought about. And she just made it sound so easy, like start a LLC, like it's no big deal. And so I said, okay. And so that was that was 2021. So I still have the legal nurse consulting business. And as I mentioned, I'm still doing some of that work, but my true passion is the nurse coaching now that I've discovered that world. So my focus is, to transition to that full time.
Mm, so cool. Oh, that's so interesting how it's kind of like the things falling into your lap. It's like the universe is throwing things at you and you're just like, yes, yes, yes. I love it. That's awesome. Um, So I'm curious. So when you said you had this point in your life where you diagnosed with Hashimoto, and then you started this new path of a different type of living. So I'm curious, how that phase of your life looked like at that point.
Yeah, it was very challenging because before the diagnosis, I was struggling for a really long time with extreme fatigue that no one could really give me an answer to or a solution. And it was super frustrating because I grew up very active, like I mentioned, surfing, and I did other sports growing up. And throughout my life, I've been very active. So having that extreme fatigue was really debilitating. I couldn't really do like I had done before, like go to work and then go to the gym or do like, go surfing or do some sort of outdoor activity because the fatigue was so extreme. It was like I could barely get through a work day. And so as I, worked with this functional medicine provider after my diagnosis, as I finally started to feel better, I remember being able to slowly get back into like doing the stand-up paddleboarding in the bay and gradually over time, listening to my body carefully, adding more and more activities, not all in one day, obviously, but throughout my life just as time progressed. So now I'm happy to say that I'm back to, I pretty much reversed my symptoms, and it's very, very rare that I have any sort of setback and I'm able to surf. And I've been taking wing lessons here in Puerto Rico. And so I'm super grateful that I can get back to, all my prior activities.
Hmm. Wow. Curious about the progression of that too is have you always felt tired? Like at what point did you decide like, okay, I'm gonna check what's wrong? Like when did you thought about that?
Yeah, so it wasn't just the fatigue. So I actually had a vertigo episode in college back in like 2002 that was
Mm,
extremely debilitating. Like I couldn't even walk on my own. It was like
mm,
as if you're, hungover, but I hadn't even drank anything. So it was super scary. And I had to have, my roommates and the property manager of where I was living, luckily, was familiar with this. And so she was very reassuring and they helped me get to the ER and get treated. And so it started out with that, and it was that for a while, the vertigo specifically, but it wasn't consistent. It was like it would happen randomly every couple years. So it was just
mm,
kind of this, I think probably stress related, but it was just the vertigo for a long time. So it was every couple years, and then after a long time, it started happening more frequently, and then it was like a couple times per year. I would say it probably didn't include the fatigue and the brain fog and all the other symptoms with Hashimoto's up
mm.
until maybe like it's hard to pinpoint exactly when. I mean, I took notes and I have it all written down somewhere, but like 6 months before the actual diagnosis, I would say, is when it really started to progress into the, frequent vertigo, dizziness, and brain fog and fatigue. And that was when I, was just going to different doctors. And then I had heard this functional medicine doctor recommended by multiple friends of friends. And so I finally took, a leap of faith, and I can't imagine where I'd be if I hadn't.
Mm. Wow, that sounds scary, like having different symptoms, not knowing what's going on, running between all the doctors. I'm just thinking about all the people that might be having this kind of random symptoms, right? Kind of popping up for them and not knowing what that can be.
Yeah, I actually met someone a few weeks ago, and she said she has Hashimoto's, and I don't know, it came up later in conversation about the vertigo, and she was just like, "What? That's a symptom of Hashimoto's?" And I was like she's had vertigo too, and she didn't know that they could be connected. I mean, Hashimoto's is very interesting because it can have, very different symptoms person to person, and you know, some may affect certain people more than others, and some may not have some of the symptoms.
Yeah, I actually know somebody from around here that she's been struggling with some vertigo. It's not really explained. It's kind of similar to what you were sharing. What exactly did the functional doctor checked, or what have you changed to in your lifestyle?
Yeah, so I had like a complete blood work panel done, and the functional medicine providers, they view the ranges a little differently than conventional medicine providers. Like, I mean, similar, but they look at it a little differently, especially like for Hashimoto's, the thyroid peroxidase level, the TPO. So, like, for example, I think mine was 131 when I first was diagnosed, and the normal is like 0 to 30. But my conventional medicine doctors weren't even looking at the TPO. They pretty much dismissed it and said, like, that's not really a factor in Hashimoto's, which is, pretty frustrating and confusing. And so, they had said all this time, like, oh, your TSH is normal, like, we could put you on Synthroid. And I'm like, well, if I don't need it, and that's another thing that is always surprising. Like, I have never been on any medication for my Hashimoto's, like a thyroid medication. Like, I realized in the last few weeks, because someone a few weeks ago, like I was talking to her about it, and I told her I'd never been on any medication. And the number of times that I've told people that I've never been on medication, and they're just like shocked or like, how is that possible? I'm just like so surprised how many people with it, or even don't have Hashimoto's, like don't realize that you can have it and not be on medication. So working with the functional medicine doctor was making extreme changes to my, I don't like to use the word diet, but food plan. So
Mhm.
eliminating gluten, dairy, soy, alcohol. So it's called the autoimmune paleo diet. So I felt like I always ate pretty healthy, throughout my life, and I never really made strict, changes or eliminations or anything like that. And so that was really stressful. And another reason why it would have been helpful to have a nurse coach, as far as like grocery shopping, and my doctor was available by email, but the time I get a response, it was like I was already home. So that was one of the major changes. And I still try to stick to that as much as possible because I feel better overall. And of course, I have my cheat days every now and then, but overall, I just try to stick to the no gluten, dairy, soy, and alcohol, and also with the combination of working with him, like doing exercises to help minimize the vertigo symptoms, and then supplements that he had suggested that I take during the time working with him, and then now continuing on. So,
Wow. Mm, wow. What's mind-blowing for me is that it's so important to find the people who are actually gonna take you seriously, wanna say, in a way. Mm,
hmm yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like I don't think you can blame, Western medicine, conventional medicine, because it's not like they don't take me seriously, but they're just trained in a certain way and they don't look at labs the same way. I mean, but it was also like, I mean, to your point, not being taken seriously, when I saw the endocrinologist, who my primary doctor, who's also endocrinologist, she referred me to, and I went and saw this endocrinologist, and she just slowly dismissed, like, oh, we're all tired at the end of a workday. I'm like, no, this isn't tired. This is way different. So yeah,
mm.
definitely didn't feel taken seriously with her. Also, when she told me like that my primary, could address this, and I said, no, my primary referred me to you to address this.
Oh, wow.
So
Passing the ball.
yeah, it
Mm.
was definitely definitely frustrating, beyond frustrating. It's like invisible, like you can't see the vertigo, you can't see the fatigue, you can't see the brain fog. So all these symptoms, it's like you look fine. I'm like, yeah, but inside I'm like my body's screaming for help.
Yeah. And it just makes me, again, think about, I guess you had maybe people around you that kind of recommended you for this doctor, right? That functional doctor, but there are people out there that might experiencing symptoms and they just going down the rabbit hole of mental health state, depressed and anxious about a life, thinking that all these things are happening to them, but nobody's listening to them. And it's unfortunate, like it's kind of
Yeah,
scary
so
to think.
many invisible illnesses out there that, I mean, it's awful. Yeah, I had a friend recently, a few months ago, lost to suicide, and it's just, I mean, not like, I mean, just people that, the last people you would think, that are struggling.
Mm,
And yeah, we really need to, I think, make it more okay to talk about and, you know, minimize that stigma.
yeah.
That's a whole nother topic, but
Yeah, but it's a good topic in a way because it's like at what point how how I'm gonna say that I'm just like thinking about, because I feel like it starts with true symptoms most of the time, and then it kind of like trickles to so many things, and our body is so complicated. And like if you look at it as a whole, it affects so many things that sometimes it's just so hard to like nail the problem, and people don't really maybe get the right help they need. Again, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just if there would be a way that people can find a way to find what's good for them, how can they do that? I'm curious.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot more people now that are coming up with, I just think of another, I haven't met them yet, but I know that they're out in Puerto Rico where I live now. Someone lost a friend to suicide, so he has completely, dropped his career and he's creating an app for mental health services and coaching and wants to make this, available to everyone. So just having that awareness and, like we hear that slogan, it's okay to not be okay. And you know, obviously we don't want to be going up to every person we know, like, are you okay? Like, but at the same time, there's so much going on in the world and, a lot of heavy news. And so, checking in with friends, colleagues, strangers, whoever, I think it's, we're all human. We all, have our own struggles. So,
Yeah. I think this kind of brings me actually to why I wanted to create that story series because I believe that the more we share the things that happen to us, people can see that first of all, it's okay to share, and second of all, some people they can relate to were in their shoes. They're like, hey, they did that. So it gives me idea to what I can do for myself. So it's kind of like expands in this kind of like quiet storm expansion of what's possible if I don't feel great or something in my life is off and I want to get better. Mm.
mhm.
So I'm curious, kind of like shifting gears because I'm very curious about your move. Can you tell me about your move? What made you move to Puerto
Sure.
Rico?
Sure. So my boyfriend's a boat captain. We both, lived in San Diego and we never thought we would leave. Both of our families are there, and this opportunity came up for his work. There was a project here in Puerto Rico, and I said, "I'll go with you." So that's pretty much how it happened. But it's funny because even before meeting him like almost 6 years ago now, I was actually planning to move to Hawaii. I had got my nursing license in Hawaii. And like I said, always being drawn to the water and nature, but like especially warm water. But I had visited Hawaii and I felt like I would get that island fever that people talk about. And then before we even visited Puerto Rico, I had this feeling that I was going to love it so much that I was going to want to stay. And growing up in San Diego with my family, traveled a lot to Mexico, just drive across the border to Baja. And so I also studied Spanish in school, and I really felt like Puerto Rico wasn't really on my radar. I think for more people like who live on the East Coast of the States, it's more of like a vacation destination closer. But yeah, it's funny. The first time that we came to visit to submit my nursing license application and to look for places to live, and that was about a year and a half ago. And when we were here, he said, this is like Hawaii and Mexico had a baby. And it's pretty accurate because it has, you know, the beaches and the warm water and the jungle and beautiful, mountains like Hawaii, like hiking. But then it has the culture of like, Spanish speaking and different foods and, you know, music and dancing. And so it's a good mix. And I really just, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And I mean, I see myself being here long term. I love it that much.
Oh, that's so exciting. Hmm. Move to a new country. I
It's just funny how like we were talking about, what the universe has in store for you. You just never know. Like we never thought that we would leave San Diego.
Wow, how fun. When you talk about it, it sounds like it was so easy. Like, oh yeah, just pick up and go. No?
No, no, not easy, not easy. Definitely not easy,
Mm,
but
yeah.
worth it though.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love it. I just remember when I was a kid, I think it was my teenage years, and my parents moved because my dad was working in a further city, and I said no to movement for like 2 years, and my parents were living apart all this time, and then they just decided they're moving, and they didn't tell me. They just literally told me, okay, we're moving next month or whatever, and I was traumatized, and since then I'm like having this fear of moving. I just want to be in one place. So it's been an ongoing
Yeah, no,
struggle.
I don't know that anyone likes to move, but
It's interesting though because it's flexibility in a way. We have to practice the flexibility because our brain is trying to keep us in the same spot because it's convenient. Um,
hmm hmm
so I'm actually trying to do other stuff to try and throw myself out of this path. So I'll go to places I don't know. I'm not necessarily going to move there, but I'll go just for the purpose of like go there and figure it out.
Yeah, it's a new, new experience, new opportunity to explore, meet new people. I mean, I'm so grateful also with the nurse coaching, being able to work from anywhere really, we can be like digital nomad nurse coaches. So we moved recently, like a month ago, to a different apartment, so I have more space like for an office. And the beauty of that, I mean, there's just so much out there that can be done, as a nurse coach, being able to work from anywhere. I mean, here, like, we don't have a car here yet, and it's not really been a priority because San Juan is pretty easy to get around via Uber, and it's more affordable than back in the States. And a lot of places, it's really difficult to find parking. So it hasn't really been a priority for me to get a car because I'm mostly working from home where I can Uber
Right.
anywhere. And I mean, there has been another reason that we haven't really prioritized that because I'm still waiting for my nursing license. That's been a big struggle to get that here. Just things move pretty slowly in terms of, like anything government related. But one day, I just want to have the nursing license here to be able to collaborate with clinics and facilities. And, I just feel like it'll open a lot more doors and opportunities.
Sweet. Hmm. Okay, so let me ask you this question because I'm very curious. As you know, I'm like all into nature and I believe in the healing power of nature. This was a huge thing for me when I was down with my mental health struggles. So I'm always curious about hearing how nature played part in people's lives. So it sounds like for you, you were always connected to the ocean specifically, but is there a particular moment in your life that you can recall that nature was a big component or like brought you to this realization or impacted you in a different way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ocean has always been like any body of water, really, for me, has been like a source of healing and source of, just enjoyment and relaxation. There was a time that, when I mentioned before about that claustrophobic feeling, I did live in Nicaragua as a Peace Corps volunteer. I was a community health educator, but I was in a town that was like 45 minutes away from the coast by bus. And so I didn't have, a car there. And taking the bus, wasn't always super, available or, convenient or, I was working. And so that was the time when I recall feeling like, you know, more claustrophobic, just kind of like stuck. And maybe it was a combination also of, I didn't have a car, so I didn't have that freedom to just go whenever. So, like I said, that feeling for me, I mean, I think, I would survive living inland somewhere, but I think it would be a lot harder. And I love like, I mean, I love all nature, mountains, and like here we have rainforest and jungle, and I love all that too, and it's all beautiful. But I prefer like water, any sources of water, preferably that I can get into. Seeing it is one thing, and then getting in it, especially if it's salt water, there's just something about. I mean, there's a quote I remember hearing or seeing a long time ago, and I forget who it was that said it, but it was something along the lines of like salt water is the cure for everything, whether it be sweat, like, sweating out salt, or tears, like crying, or the sea. So like getting in the salt water and like I don't know if you've heard of these places now, they're like float tanks. In San Diego, there's a place, it's called Float North County, but it's literally like a tank. So it's kind of, think of like a hot tub, but then it's just salt water and no jets or bubbles, and it's like a glorified Epsom salt bath. So it's so salty that you float. So they talk about like how it can compare to like people float in the Dead Sea. So
Yeah.
you go in there and you lay there in like an hour, hour and a half, and it is so relaxing. It was really hard to get used to at first. It was kind of weird because you go in and then it's all dark and you're just like, some of them they have a light you can turn on, and then some of them have music, but you literally just lay there, and like the healing benefits are astronomical. I almost, at one point, I mean, I love massage, and I like feel like this is almost equivalent, can be, to how relaxing a massage is. And I literally like have fallen asleep. I know it sounds crazy.
Wow.
It's like if you imagine the ocean like totally flat, like a lake, and then you could just float in it.
Yeah, I actually grew up in Israel, so I've been on the Dead Sea. So I know how that feels to float.
Okay, so yeah, how was that?
Well, as a kid, it was too salty for me because I felt like everything is itchy. Like, every cut, everything felt. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
how is it to sit there for an hour and a half? That's a lot,
Yeah, you
sounds to me.
definitely want to cover if you have any cuts or open sores, they give you like a Vaseline, you can cover it up. But yeah, I try not to go if I have any cuts because it can be painful.
Oh, wow. People coming from the whole world to go to this sea, it's definitely known to have all the benefits. So I'm curious, in your coaching, what you do now, are you working with people that are kind of similar in your path? And are you combining anything that relates to what you share, like about the ocean or the nature or, anything of that sort?
Yes. So depending on what the client's interests are, I'll back up for a moment and say, so I did take a functional medicine for nurses course. So I indirectly, use that knowledge and helping guide my clients again, depending on what it is they're working on. I have recently focused more on doing like mini mindfulness sessions. So, sitting guiding clients, finding more presence and awareness, or if it's something maybe they have, certain pain in their body, like a guided imagery, helping them to relieve that pain. And yes, most definitely in terms of like clients that are, maybe trying to lose weight or create better habits, and encouraging them to, if they like swimming, or if they live near a body of water where they can do that, I definitely encourage. So again, it depends on the client, but yes, definitely getting out into nature, biking, hiking, walking, also like walking meditations. I know some people think of meditation have like a religious connotation, so that's why I usually choose the word mindfulness, but that can be done in so many ways. I always like to tell clients it doesn't have to be like sitting with their legs crossed and your eyes closed, in this certain position. It can be done, walking in nature, and, maybe listening to a guided meditation. And, everyone's different. So what's going to work for one person may not work for another. So I like to encourage clients to, explore and play around, and find what works best for them.
I think this is a great point that everybody has to find what works best for them. And I think the key is to try things out and not be afraid. Yeah, I feel like you have a lot of knowledge when it comes to physical sensation and how to tune into your body when you experience different symptoms. I wonder if somebody's listening that have something going on and they're like, oh, maybe I have something that the doctors doesn't know. What would be their steps? What tips can you give them?
Yeah, definitely encourage them to have an open mind and maybe, seek alternative options. And, depending on what the illness or symptoms are, if they're not getting what they need from their provider, then seeking out, maybe a nurse coach or a functional medicine provider or someone else if they don't get what they need or feel dismissed by their primary doctor to seek out other options and know that there is help out there for what it is that they're struggling with, so not to give up and have hope and just keep looking.
Yeah, love it. Don't give up, keep trying, and know that what your experience is also real for you, right? All right, so before we close up, is there anything else that you'd like to add or share?
Really specifically, anything that comes to the top of my head, just, reminding people and sharing how beneficial it can be to get out in nature, whether that be in the mountains or a beach or wherever, is accessible to you, especially because with, you know, how we are with our phones and how addicting they are and how challenging it may be, just really taking even, if it's 5 minutes to get outside. If you don't have time for a walk, just getting outside and getting fresh air and giving yourself that, few minutes can really make a difference.
Yes, 100%. Cannot agree more. That just remembered when I was driving this morning, there was this commercial that was talking about how Instagram and Facebook knew that they are affecting kids and creating anxiety, depression, a body image type of disorders. And they were encouraging people to call and sue Facebook and Instagram for doing that for the kids. I have two
That
kids and I was
before.
just thinking about it. It's just insane. But that's true. Putting it to the side, go outside and watch some deers.
Yes, if
Yeah.
you have animals nearby, anything, just away from the phone, any
Sure.
screen.
Yes, yes. Ah, okay. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming in today and sharing your knowledge and, your energy and your story. It was really, really fun.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and it was fun to get to know you a little better too.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.